Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we are aero braking, and this is going to take a while. I'm not sure how many more aero brake passes it's going to take, but it's going to be a number of them. We're going to warp around to here. There we go. And let's take another aero brake pass. We do see another encounter with Ike coming up here. It is going to push us further out. Okay. That's not necessarily great. Hopefully the aero brake does enough to deal with that. Okay, I've seen this bug before. The only thing that fixes it is reloading. This is just going to shake itself to pieces at this point. It's a sad bug, but nothing we can do about it other than reload. Reloading fixed it previously. I ran into it with this exact craft when I loaded up for the first time, starting up last episode, actually. So, I don't know if it's a problem related to this craft, but a reload seems to fix it, or at least mostly fix it. Let's warp this around again and bring it to here. This time, okay, yeah, there's that Ike encounter. So the Ike encounter is going to throw us further out from Duna, and that is by no means what we want. That is absolutely not what we're interested in. We may have to do a little bit of a braking burn at the periapsis here to attempt to avoid it. We'll see how that goes. If we do that, it's going to be a minimal burn. We want to use as little fuel as possible on this landing because we know that we only have so much, right? We have to maintain a particular mass. And let's warp forward until we get to the atmosphere here, and we'll see how much this actually ends up changing just from the aero brake. It might be enough. Okay. For the time being, let's not be in physics warp. Okay. Now we can be in physics warp. Okay. So the question is, how much are we actually going to change our encounter here? And I think the answer is, I'm pretty sure we're not actually going to have this encounter. We just need to slow down enough. And that's fine. We're going to be doing aero braking for a number of additional passes here. We're just trying to do this as fuel efficiently as possible, which of course is not necessarily time efficient. That's just the trade-off that we have to make. So let's bring this on down, and we are certainly seeing slowing happening. Wonderful. 24,693 at this point, so that is fine. I'm still surprised, to be honest, that we see heating gauges on our engines as we approach that 25-kilometer marker at 1,200 meters per second. That's kind of wild to me. Reason being that when we see that 1,200 meters per second, it's in a much thinner atmosphere than we don't see the issue in Kerbal at a higher speed. So it's very strange to me. But regardless, we're going to get this brought down as low as we can. We're still about 40 seconds from the periapsis here, and I'm keeping an eye on our Ike periapsis. It's going down. Okay. That is noted. So I don't want to get thrown out to be here. This periapsis, not this periapsis. The other periapsis here. This one. Yeah, that is currently going up. So we're definitely going to want to do something about that. I'm commencing a burn here. Okay, now we're never going to have an Ike encounter again. That's fine. So that looks good. From here, we should be clear to aero brake. That was a very, very small burn. And let's check in on our heating situation. The heating situation looks pretty decent. We did drop our apoapsis there by about 2,000 kilometers, somewhere like that. We are definitely seeing this heat building up. It's odd that it happens on the way up, to be honest. I'm not sure why that's happening. It seems like the heating is very strange overall. It might be related to the shaking bug in some weird way. I don't really have an explanation for it. Regardless, we're not, like, burning off the engines, so it should be absolutely fine. Under normal circumstances, I would not aerobrake nearly this heavily. Under normal circumstances, I would have simply burned until we were at a reasonable velocity, but I'm preserving fuel. So this is fine for the moment, and we're just going to take a number of aerobrake passes here. Fairly soon, though, we're going to be properly captured and no longer be in orbit. That time is not here yet, so that is noted. For now, of course, we are continuing to work our way through these aero captures, through these brakes, aero brakes, that is the correct terminology, and we are bringing this back up out of the atmosphere. We're almost there, and we'll warp around, and we're going again. Now, a lot of the reduction of our apoapsis on that pass was due to that very small burn. Like, you gotta remember, the Dunan atmosphere is extremely thin. Extremely thin. These aero brakes are really not having very much effect at all. We're exiting the atmosphere now, and let's warp. Actually, we're going to exit the physics warp, and let's time warp to here. Okay, so around we go again. We're never going to get an Ike encounter at this point, and that's good. We don't want one. It's throwing us the wrong direction. That gravity assist would be useful when leaving Duna, not so useful when entering Duna. Okay, so let's warp towards the atmosphere here. Almost there. 60 kilometers. And we'll come out about here. Cool. Allowing ourselves to reposition. And the question is, how much is this going to move the needle, right? How much is this going to move the needle on this apoapsis? So we're at basically 1800 right now. This is, of course, the lowest in the atmosphere that we are dipping, or that we have dipped thus far. But we're not changing our periapsis very much with these aero brakes. Aero capture like this would be much easier on a location with a thicker atmosphere, but it's fine. This is definitely a valid technique to change your apoapsis or to get captured at all. So that's absolutely okay. The heating gauges are strange to me, though. That indicates to me that we still have far too much energy in this thing, and continuing to aerobrake is absolutely the right call. We've definitely dropped this down by, I mean, at this point, like 10 kilometers. So that's looking good. We're about a minute away from our periapsis. I'm also looking at how fast we're proceeding here. I don't think this is actually at 4x. It's at like somewhere between 2 and 3x, I think. But, you know, whatever. The time in this game is very weird, like a lot of things in this game. But we're definitely bringing that apoapsis down nicely. I like it. We're going to dip down a little bit deeper into the atmosphere yet. We're about 30 seconds from the periapsis, and we're going to end up dropping it in total, maybe like 200 kilometers. It's getting less efficient at this point, and that is definitely understood. We could do another braking burn here. I'm going to do it, burning off just 30 meters per second, about like that. Just to reduce our speed a little bit. That's the most efficient time to do it, right at the periapsis like that, and that is relatively fine. So we're currently going back up for the moment, but we're still dropping our apoapsis down, and we managed to bring that down a pretty hefty amount with that burn. I don't want to do any additional burns here. This is as burned as we're going to get. So from here, it's just aerobrake passes that we're going to do until we are fully captured. We'll get there. But it's a number of aerobrake passes, it's a very thin atmosphere, and this is a very heavy lander by design. You know, if we really wanted to be clever, we should have included an inflatable heat shield right here, but we're not that clever. We would definitely do that for something like Eve. No doubt about it. And we're going to have to. The Eve mission is going to be interesting. 10 Kerbals that we land and return from Eve with. That is going to be one heck of a mission. I have no idea how we're going to pull that one off. We're definitely going to have like an orbital interplanetary transfer stage that we dock up with, but just the landing and takeoff is going to be ridiculous. And it's much more difficult to actually simulate in KSP2 than in KSP1, because we can't just assign the position through the cheat menu in simulated runs. So that's going to be a whole thing. We're going to need enough DV to land and enough DV to return to orbit, and then have some sort of a thing to dock to push us back. As long as we can land and return to orbit, it's fine. And at this point, we should definitely be warping around. That's going to be a wild, wild thing, though. We'll see how that goes. So let's bring this on around. We did manage to drop this by a decent amount. I think we're dropping it roughly by half per aerobrake pass, so the next one should be about here, then the next one here, then the next one here, then the next one here, and that might be enough to bring us down. Maybe. We're in Atmo right now, and we're definitely going to want to align and then warp through. Cool. So we're projecting somewhere around 1, 2, 3, 4-ish. 3 to 4 aerobrake passes. Assuming that my assessment is correct there, which we probably shouldn't assume. But something along the lines of 4 additional aerobrake passes, and then we come in for our landing. That should be reasonably okay. Excellent. And we're going to want these parachutes to deploy as early as possible, of course, to make use of the thin Dunan atmosphere as much as we can. We've already changed them to be as early as possible. We're about 2 minutes to the periapsis on this aerobrake pass. We're definitely moving a lot slower. We've got less energy than we had before by a pretty significant margin, and I think we're no longer seeing significant heating on our engines, so that is good. No doubt about it, that is good. And we're seeing this periapsis start to drop faster as well. As the apoapsis gets closer, as we get less elliptical, the periapsis is also dropping. So that is also excellent. That means more time in the atmosphere, and each aerobrake pass, we get a little bit further. I'm not even seeing too much of a plasma sheath at this point. There's a little bit of one. But it's really not all that much. Surface velocity is still going up as we approach the periapsis here. We're definitely not in capture yet. We could consider going a little bit deeper into the atmosphere with a retrograde burn up at the apoapsis, a very, very, very brief one, to tune our periapsis down to like 20 kilometers. But to be honest, I think that this is okay. Like, we're down to an apoapsis here of about 1,000 kilometers. Maybe we should dip a little deeper. The question is, how much deeper can we get away with without engine overheating, right? A little deeper would be good, allowing us to bleed off a good amount of speed. So this was, what was this when we started? I can't remember. Okay. It's at 1,020 right now. By the time we get out of the atmosphere, it's probably going to be a little bit closer to 1,000 kilometers. So that's basically a megometer. Yeah, 1016 now. And we're still in the atmosphere. We're going to continue to slow down for a little bit here. Each pass, we lose a little bit of speed. This would be so much more efficient if this thing had, you know, some amount of atmosphere to it, if Duna did. I mean, it does, but if it had a reasonable amount of atmosphere. Also would be good if our mass wasn't so high, but, you know, this is the mission. We have to do the mission this way. I mean, technically we could just, like, we've got 100 tons of spare fuel here. We could technically not do it that way, but we shouldn't. We should absolutely not burn this fuel except for the landing. So we're coming back out of this atmosphere, and we are going to take this around for yet another aerobrake pass, but our surface velocity has definitely dropped off by a couple hundred meters per second, so that's good. And definitely not all of that was due to our burning. Some of it was, but not all of it. We're going to be exiting the atmosphere right about now. So let's warp around and take it for another pass. Around we go to perhaps here. There we go. This is definitely getting to be a shorter warp as well. Every pass, it takes us less time to go around. But we have certainly dropped this down. Yeah, that didn't drop nearly as much as I'd hoped. It's now at basically 1,000 kilometers. Let's watch this pass. We just entered the atmosphere, and let's see how much this drops us by. I don't honestly expect it to be all that much. So we'll just hold retrograde here and warp through this. I kind of feel like burning right now and dropping our periapsis a little bit. At the same time, absolutely our best chance of success is to continue to aerobrake and do as little burning as possible. We want to maintain as much fuel as we can to ensure that we stay above that 300-ton marker. So we've dropped 1 kilometer so far in this aerobrake. That's, you know, not amazing. There's another one, though, and we've still got 2 minutes to the periapsis, so we're still in very, very thin atmosphere here. We are watching the periapsis drop a little bit every time we go deeper in the atmosphere, and I think this is okay. I wouldn't normally run a mission like this, but I think this is an interesting change of pace, or maybe interesting isn't the right word for it. Whatever. It doesn't really matter all that much. I'm absolutely fine with continuing to aerobrake here for the sake of the mission. Under most circumstances, I would get a little bit impatient with this number of aerobrake passes, and I would have burned some fuel to deal with it. But I think given the circumstances, this is our best chance of success. So let's just keep doing this. It'll be fine. We are down well below 1,000 kilometers at this point. So we have dropped by like 30 kilometers thereabouts. And we're not to the periapsis yet. So it's going to drop a decent amount more than that as we get a little bit deeper. I think tuning our periapsis down is not the worst idea in the world. We certainly could do that. But we'd have to be pretty cautious about it. But again, that would burn fuel, and I would really very much prefer not to do that. Very, very much prefer not to do that. So we've passed the periapsis at this point. We're going back up. And this is going to be a lot more aerobrake passes if we don't do it. Okay. At the apoapsis, I'm going to create a maneuver plan. And we're going to tune down that periapsis ever so slightly. Okay. We're going to need to wait to get out of the atmosphere here before we do this, I think. That is, of course, an impact, which we don't want. That's only 9 dV. Okay. I want this periapsis. We'll pin that open. And we'll target this as being about 20 kilometers. I'm still a little bit concerned about the overall situation with regard to heating. So we'll put this at about 20 kilometers. 16, 17, 18, 19, and that would probably work. So that's 1 DV. Okay. For the moment, I'm going to deactivate these engines. This engine here, and this engine here. Did this one deactivate? It did not. Okay. So all 4 of these are deactivated. I'm going to thrust limit this guy down to 1% thrust, because we only need like less than 1 meter per second here. So that'll be fine. We're going to exit the atmosphere very shortly, but I absolutely do want to tune down this periapsis a bit and make this more efficient. This is 1 delta V. So the argument about burning fuel here is, I think, not a very strong one. Okay, we are out of the atmosphere now. Let's align to that burn position. And the question is, where exactly is that burn position? Watching our electric charge just drain away. Yeah, that's to be expected, I suppose. Okay, around over here. The reaction wheels are going to bring us to a halt. We've got plenty of electric charge for it. And let's warp on over. Okay, so we are basically at the apoapsis right now. We're actually slightly after it. And I'm just tuning down our periapsis here. This is more used as a timer than anything else. But let's just bring that on down. Oh, this is going to be a little bit of a lengthy burn, actually, at 1% thrust. We could bring this up to 2% thrust. Maybe even like 5. Yeah, 5% thrust looks a little bit better. So we're at 23 kilometers on our periapsis now. 22 kilometers. I don't actually care about this. 21 kilometers. And 20 kilometers. So we're going to test that. We're going to reactivate these engines. No, not an independent throttle. Reactivate these engines and then unthrust limit this one, just in case we need to do a braking burn. And we're going to warp around and see how the heating feels. So we're just going to bring ourselves to about here. So down we go. We're going to have to turn, of course. We're pretty far off of our turn point. We're actually in atmosphere right now. That was not intended. I was intending to come out a little before the atmosphere, but the atmosphere is very thin at this altitude, and it should be fine. We're just going to bring it over to retrograde, and then we'll hit the 4x time acceleration as soon as we get there. So right about now. Okay. Electric charge is going down at this moment, but it will start going up very shortly. It's holding. Still going down. It's holding. But it will start to go up soon. In theory. Yeah, now it's going up. Perfect. So we're going to dip a little bit deeper into the atmosphere. We'll be in the atmosphere longer. So that means each of these aerobrake passes are going to be significantly more efficient. And hopefully, this will be enough to bring us down pretty quickly. I don't want to do a full other episode of aerobrake passes. That would be obnoxious, I feel like. So we'll just keep feeling this out and see what our heating ends up feeling like here. We're going to be dipping like 4 kilometers lower, so it's going to be a significantly thicker atmosphere. But let's just bring this on through. We're still a minute and a half away from periapsis at this point, and this is about where our periapsis would have been previously, without that, like, 1 meter per second burn. So we're definitely dipping a lot lower and shedding off a fair amount of speed. I'm watching for any overheat indicators, because overheat is a concern. That said, we have quite a lot less speed than we did before. So that is absolutely noted. We're still about 40 seconds away from our periapsis. the thickest point of the atmosphere that we're going to be going through. 25 seconds away from that. Overheat markers. Okay, 15 seconds away from periapsis. Heating is still increasing at this point. Keeping an eye on it. 2, 1, 0. Heating is decreasing now. We're still going to have heat build up, but the overall altitude is going up, which means the atmospheric thickness is going down, which means the heat buildup is decreasing at this point, while the dissipation is remaining the same. So we shouldn't have any major overheat here. But we'll see. This heat is a little bit concerning. I'm just watching the heat gauges go up and grimacing. I think it's not going up as fast now. That's for sure. This is a bit of a butt clencher, though. But I think we're okay. I'm starting to relax at this point. I'm glad I didn't take it any lower than 20. But we definitely shaved off a lot of our momentum there, so that is good. Ah, there we go. 2 of these have gone away. Yeah, our heat gauges are definitely going away. Perfect. So we managed to not burn off our engines. That's good. And we also managed to get a significant amount of apoapsis reduction. The question is, are we going to need to do a re-entry burn to prevent these from breaking off, or from burning off, rather, a little later on? Well, we'll find out, but we definitely dropped our apoapsis by a solid 200 kilometers there. So I'm going to call that good. I don't feel comfortable lowering our periapsis any more than that right now. I feel like this is as good as we're going to get for the moment. We've got too much speed still to lower our periapsis anymore. We need to lower our apoapsis. So that's going to be at least another aerobrake pass or 2. But we were definitely losing efficiency on the aerobrake passes, so I'm glad I lowered it, and I'm glad I didn't go lower than 20 kilometers, because that was a spicy one. However, it is time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and next episode, we are definitely landing on Duna. 100%. It's happening next episode. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Atala, Andy McGar, Ali Lead, Dark Horse, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Tommy Kentogan, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.